Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing absolutely fine. I welcome you all to today's session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis. It's your daily dose at 10 a.m. where we analyze a day's Hindu newspaper and dissect the most important news stories from both the mains and the prelims examination point of view. From today's Hindu newspaper, these are the articles that we have taken up. From the mains examination point of view, we'll be discussing an article about how there's a requirement to now focus on electric vehicles such as trucks because they are the ones who are contributing heavily to our vehicular pollution. Second article is about why the government going forward needs to be much more mindful of any construction in the Indian Himalayan region. As you know, the 41 workers are still trapped inside the Silkyara tunnel. We are still undertaking continuous action trying to rescue them. But this article says that this is not the only kind of an incident that has happened in the Indian Himalayan region. And unfortunately, this will not be the last one as well. So what do we need to do going forward? What action should be taken is the focus of this article. Third, we have an article on why Bihar has been demanding the special category status for some time now. The article focuses on the definition of special category status. What does it give to a state? What are the other states which are demanding the same? From the prelims exam point of view, the government of India has decided that Ayushman Bharat centers will now be called Ayushman Arogya Mandir. Then there's an article about the President of India calling for Indian judicial service. As you know, yesterday was the Constitution Day of India, usually where the President of India goes to a function organized by the Supreme Court of India. This is where the President usually makes an yearly speech. In her speech yesterday, she made a case for the Indian judicial service. We'll be discussing what that is, the pros and cons of having such a service. Then we also have an article about how the government of India is reiterating the fact in the new bills that any privileged communication between the ministers and the president should remain a secret. This was in the constitution earlier as well. So we'll be discussing what that issue is. And in the end, an article from Science. A scientific study shows that the plants can actually warn other plants when they're under attack. When you cut a plant, they can send out certain signals which can make the other plant in the neighborhood aware that some danger might be approaching. We'll be discussing what that study is. So let's begin without any further delay with the first article. The first article here focuses on why the government of India now needs to focus on electrification of not just the private vehicles, but also vehicles such as the trucks. Now, we are in an time period where pollution is usually at an all-time high, especially in North India. There are multiple debates around it. There are multiple reasons that have been pointed out because of which pollution levels have been increasing, be it stubble burning, be it under construction cities. Also, one of the reasons that has been pointed towards pollution is the vehicular pollution. Now, the governments across the country try to take multiple steps in this regard. For example, if you take the example of Delhi government starts the even odd scheme, which basically means that only half of the vehicles can ply on the roads. But mostly, these schemes only apply to private vehicles. The problem here is, if you look at the vehicles that are polluting the environment, as per the author, the trucks that are used for transportation usually are the worst. Now, please understand something. In our day-to-day life, we do not give the kind of importance to the trucks that we should. The entire country's economy, and not just India, the entire world's economy within the countries is very heavily dependent on these huge trucks. Remember, even when we had the COVID-19 lockdown, where all of us had to sit inside our homes, trucks and truck drivers were still working 24/7 to ensure the supply of all the essential commodities. They ensure the last mile supply. They make sure that every commodity that you require is transported and it goes into the hands of the people that require it. Take the very current example. You all see the rescue work going on at the Silkyara tunnel. There are humongous machines deployed there. How are these machines being carried to these tunnels? How are we carrying all these people, the medicines, the food supply to these tunnels? The answer is trucks. Now, trucks are extremely heavy, they're extremely powerful, because of which they run on diesel and not petrol. So if you actually compare the calorific value of petrol, diesel, that is a fuel that gives the most power, diesel comes at the top. That is why you will see heavy vehicles, be it the trucks, tractors, all of these run on diesels. The problem with diesel is that it is much more polluting as compared to petrol. This is what is the gist of the problem as per this article. The article here says that recently scientific studies have pointed out that a big contributor to urban smog is PM 2.5 and PM 10 pollution. Most of it is caused by the transport sector, and even in transport sector by the trucks that are guzzling all that diesel. Now, India is a country where the demands, especially of the middle class, the upper middle class, is increasing every single year. Meaning that with increasing consumption, with increasing number of businesses, the number of trucks on the road will also increase. On an average, as per the author, 9 lakh new trucks are added to our roads every single year. Right now, the lump sum strength of the number of trucks in India would be about 70 lakh. Apart from that, if you see how much load they carry, they say that 2 trillion ton kilometer freight on trucks is carried every single year. Now these trucks, because of the amount of diesel that they consume over 1/4 of Indian oil imports and contribute 90% of the road transport CO2 emissions. So understand, whatever import of oil India has, 1/4 of that is just consumed in trucks. So just imagine the kind of impact we would have if we convert them into electric vehicles. Now, one argument some people might have is that would the electric trucks have so much power that is required for a truck? The answer is yes. The electric trucks that have now started to roll out across the world, including India, they do have as much power. But the problem here is the increased cost. If you calculate the numbers, assuming that India electrifies all its new trucks that are coming into the roads, this would mean that we would be able to save a humongous amount of diesel, and we would be able to save a humongous amount of pollution from coming into the air. For example, we have electrified the rail freight transportation. Means the railway lines that are used for carrying of goods, that has been electrified. It caters to only 20% of the freight in the country. The remaining freight, that is the remaining transportation of goods, is done through the roads only. Right now, the demand for 7,750 e-trucks in India is to be fulfilled by 2030. If somehow we are able to make sure that all these new e-trucks come into circulation by 2030, the result will be that we will be able to save 800 billion liters of diesel by 2050. The problem here, as I said, is cost. Electric trucks are about 4 times the cost of a usual diesel truck. For example, electric truck in the mid-range would cost 1.5 crore rupees. Compare that to diesel truck would be around 40 lakh rupees. So there's a huge cost up that is attached to this electric trucks. Now you expect the government to pitch in. You expect that the government, who has to take the responsibility to clean our environment, they should be the one financing most of these, they should be the one introducing subsidies. But the problem is the government expenditure also has limitations. You can't expect the government to finance all of this. This is where, as per the author, role of the private sector comes in. The government has to make sure the private sector finds it's very, very attractive to come and invest in these electric trucks, because the government alone will not be able to fulfill all these requirements. If we have more than 50% vehicle penetration in 3-wheelers, it has made a very positive impact already on our roads. You see a lot of 3-wheelers right now, 2-wheelers in India, many of them have converted to electric vehicles. But when it comes to bigger vehicles, the larger vehicles such as trucks, the amount of penetration that we have seen is still negligible. The private sector here has to take up the role, but for the government also it's important to make attractive proposition of the private sector, because the private sector would only be interested in investing their money if they see a good return on the capital. If they see that yes, investing the money in electric trucks would give us more benefit. Only then they will come up and they would open up their coffers for such investment. There is one more idea that the author has given. The author is saying, why not make green freight corridors? Means the suggestion is, why not the government says that certain highways will only allow electric trucks to enter. Let's reserve certain highways for only electric trucks. Don't allow diesel trucks to enter. What will it do? It will, number one, have a positive impact on the environment. Second, it will push these transport companies towards electric trucks rather than diesel trucks. Yes, we can't have that for very long highways because it would impact the supply of goods. But in the beginning, we can at least have this for small highways about 500 kilometer or so, which have heavy truck movement. Let's initiate something like a green freight corridor. Please understand, this is something that has not been done so far. It's a suggestion that the author is putting forward, that maybe the government can start with this, reserve certain highways for only electric trucks and not allow the other trucks to come in. Now, if you see around you, which are the electric vehicles that you see mostly on Indian roads? Two-wheelers, a lot of them. Three-wheelers also. And you would also see a lot of cars coming in. Tata Nexon has become very famous. Then there are other electric versions that have come out of multiple cars in India. Even the electric vehicles, by the way, are of different types. A lot of people still don't want to go towards electric vehicles because they are not sure about the infrastructure for charging. They are not sure about the maintenance. The electric chargers that are available at public places, they are only available in tier 1 cities, metro cities. In tier 2, tier 3 cities, we still don't have electric charging available at such a large extent. To understand, there are different types of electric vehicles and not just the ones that you see in India like the Tata Nexon one. For example, there's something called HEV, that is conventional hybrid electric vehicles. Now, what exactly are these? An example for this is the new Honda City in India. So if you go to a Honda showroom, you will see Honda City in India. So what it has is, it has electric battery also and it runs on petrol as well. The electric battery will not need to be charged separately. Like, you don't have to import a charger. The battery will charge automatically as the car runs. So while you're running the car, you can switch whether you want to run it on the battery or you want to run it on petrol. When it's running on the petrol, the battery will charge automatically. You don't need an external charger. Then there are plug-in hybrid vehicles that again work with petrol and with a battery. But here you have to basically put in an external charger. These kind of vehicles are right now not available in India in large numbers. Then we have Tata Nexon, etc. that are available in India, where you have to basically put in the charger. They don't have combustion engine. They don't have a fuel tank. Then we also have fuel cell vehicles. Some companies such as Toyota, Honda are basically using hydrogen to power the electric motor which is in the car. India does not have these vehicles so far. These are different types of vehicles that we have. In India, the ones that we mostly have are these ones. That is the BEVs, where you have to input a charging source from outside externally. You have to connect to a power station. The other problem of going towards electric in the long term is the expenditure, as we talked about. As per the World Economic Forum, a report that came out last year said that transition of India's entire fleet of 2-3-wheelers to electric would need $285 billion in financing. Just imagine, they're talking only about 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. They're not even talking about cars or trucks, etc. The bigger vehicle it would be, where you have to transition, the more expensive it would be, because the government has to provide a lot more infrastructure. There are still a lot of roadblocks in why the people in India on a large scale are not adopting to electric vehicles. First, the charging network. Now, if you're living in a big metro city, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and even in some tier 2 cities, you would see electric charging stations around you. But still, in smaller cities, and I'm not even talking about the rural areas now, even in smaller cities, it would be hard to see a charging station. The other problem is, just imagine, if let's say you are running a car on a highway and you run out of petrol. Let's say there's no petrol pump nearby you. You still have an option that maybe you take a lift in a bottle or in a container, you get petrol and then you come back, put the petrol in your car, and your car will start. But what do you do when it's an electric vehicle? If a battery runs out of power in the middle of nowhere, you have no other option. That also becomes a big challenge. The source of the electricity. Yes, electric vehicles don't pollute the environment, but what about the electricity that they are using to charge themselves? If that electricity itself is being produced in a thermal power plant by burning the coal, then what is the benefit out of all of this? You can say that my vehicle is not polluting the environment, but the electricity that your vehicle is using in itself is polluting the environment. That also becomes challenging. Also, we are dependent on lithium-ion batteries. Now, if you see the lithium-ion batteries, the entire world is looking towards those nations that have a monopoly on lithium-ion batteries and have a large resource of lithium. There are countries such as Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Australia, China. These are the ones that are at the topmost when it comes to the chain of lithium production. This makes countries such as India dependent on these countries for import of such material. Materials such as cobalt, nickel, which are mainly found in Congo, Indonesia, it also makes India depend on the other countries for import of all of these. There's a high initial cost of owning these vehicles. You go and buy a car, a normal car, if it costs 10 lakh rupees, its electric version will cost you 14-15 lakh rupees. Same thing we saw with the trucks as well. And there's lack of awareness as well. A lot of people are still not sure about how the electric vehicles would work. They are still susceptible about the quality of these vehicles. They might have seen in news that some electric vehicle is burning or it has got burned on the road. So there is a lot of negative mindset attached to it as well. The government on its part has started certain initiatives to give people push towards electric vehicle. We have the FAME scheme, faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles. We also have the National Electric Mobility Plan, the PLI scheme to push the manufacturers of electrical vehicles, etc. towards it. The government of India also gave considerable tax benefits as well if you own an electric vehicle. The Ministry of Power has also given guidelines on charging infrastructure. They have said that there should be at least one charging station in a grid of 3 kilometers at every 25 kilometer on both sides of the highway, so that if someone is running on a highway with the electric vehicle, they should not worry about charging stations. We have also seen amendment to model building bylaws, where about 20% of the parking space should be reserved for EV charging facilities in all residential and commercial buildings. You would see in bigger cities a lot of malls, office spaces in their basement parking now give electric vehicle charging spots. So you can just park your car, put it in the electric charge, go away for 2-3 hours, come back, it would be fully charged. These things are done, but again, there is a long way to go still to make a considerable impact considering the scale of problem. The next article that we have here is taking our focus back on the fragile Indian Himalayan region. You all have read and we have discussed this multiple times about the 41 workers that are still trapped in the Silkyara tunnel. The problem again goes back to this issue of undertaking heavy infrastructure building in the Indian Himalayan region. As you know, the Himalayas are a very young mountain range, which means they are not very stable, which means that there will always be chances of these kind of untoward instances taking place. Now, what can the government do about it? What have we done? The author here has written this article to criticize the government and the government agencies. The author here is saying, in order to focus on urban development, in order to broaden our roads in such fragile environment, we have ignored the importance of principles such as environment impact assessment. We have ignored the fact that these mountain ranges, as per multiple committee reports, were never meant to have such heavy infrastructure. There are question marks over not just the building of tunnel, but also the government's initiatives of hydropower projects, inviting more and more tourists to these areas, etc. The Silkyara tunnel that is in question is a part of Government of India's Char Dham project. Underway, the government wants to connect the Char Dham, that is the 4 important pilgrimage sites for the Hindus, to all weather roads, making sure that there is connectivity 12 months in the entire year. Now, this is important. Please understand this. It's not just about things for tourism purposes. every government tries to ensure that we have all-weather connectivity or all-weather roads to important areas. Let me give you a real example so that you can understand. It's a historical story. When you read about India's history, when you read about India's first ever Lok Sabha elections after our independence, you will see that India's first ever election after our independence were 1951-52. Now my question is, why 51-52? Why not 52 only? Why 51? So there's a story behind it. The story is the elections of the Lok Sabha were supposed to be held in the first half of 1952. But then the government realized that there are certain areas in India, like the areas in the hilly regions such as Himachal, etc., they are so difficult to reach in the winter that it would be impossible to conduct elections there. So what did the government do? The government conducted elections in the end of 1951 at certain places which are extremely high up in the mountain in the Himalayas, because we had no connectivity there when there was snowfall. In case of a snowfall, there are many parts of the country that are just cut off from the other part of the country. You just can't reach there. You have to wait for the weather to change. You have to wait for the snow to melt. This is a problem that you have when you don't have all-weather connectivity. Just imagine there is a law and order problem in an area which does not have all-weather connectivity. There is snow on the ground. How will you reach those areas? Those areas don't even have airports. So this is why every government, and not just the government of India, tries to ensure all-weather connectivity roads. Add to that the issue that these areas are nearby our international borders. That too with China. So this is an area which is always critical for the government of India, where India wants proper construction to take place. It obviously has to come at a certain cost. Unfortunately, the cost now is being borne by those workers that are trapped in the Silkyard Tunnel for multiple days now. The idea of the Char Dham project is to connect the four religious pilgrimages, as I told you, Gangotri, Yamunotri, Badrinath and Kedarnath. Now, the problem here is that this is not the first time that such a tragic incident has happened in the Indian Himalayan region. We saw in 2013 the flash floods in Uttarakhand, the devastating flash floods that took the lives of hundreds of people. There are people who are still missing, whose dead bodies have never been found in those flash floods. Now the author says, when these flash floods took place, the rescue work of the government was delayed because again there was no connectivity to these areas. And the government learned a lesson that if something like this happens again, we need to have better connectivity to these areas. But the author is saying the government's act of building this infrastructure will itself lead to a problem in these areas. So you see the problem. There was a problem, you try to find a solution. That solution itself will lead to a bigger problem. That is what the author is saying, that the government's action after 2013 floods to ensure all-weather road connectivity will itself lead to more of these conditions. That is what the government is not understanding. The Himalayas are not meant for this heavy infrastructure building, and they were never meant to. There have been multiple studies conducted, and all of them have given the same output and the same recommendation to the government that heavy infrastructure building in the Himalayas must stop. If you look at the main thrust of the Himalayas, it passes a few kilometers north of where the Silkyard Tunnel is. So this area in itself is extremely sensitive to earthquakes, to shear shocks. This is why any construction in this zone is dangerous, let alone these huge tunnels that are being built by the government of India. As per the National Highway Authority of India, they have said that they will now be conducting 29, they will now be shortlisting 29 tunnels, inspecting all of them, whether any of them are susceptible to such an incident. But as per the author, this is too little too late. Such kind of an action should have been taken earlier. We should not wait for a tragedy to strike us to now learn our lesson. We should always have learned this lesson much earlier. There is a requirement to have a proper environment impact assessment, but that is also not taken seriously. For example, the Char Dham project which the government is undertaking, it's about 900 kilometer long project. The entire project should have had one single environment impact assessment to understand what impact would it have on the environment. But very smartly, what the authorities did, as per the author, they divided the project into 53 different sections, and every section had its individual environment impact assessment. The result was that none of the sections showed the bigger risk. For example, you conducted an assessment on 20-kilometer long stretch. The assessment would have said, yes, it's fine to build it, there are some dangers here and there, but you can build it. Only when you conduct the assessment on the entire 900-kilometer long area at once, you will be able to understand the bigger implication of it. That was not done in this case. It was broken down into multiple parts. The author says that since we have seen what the government's agenda is, they are not stopping at construction. Maybe it is time for the Supreme Court to come in. The Supreme Court has already been hearing this matter about the amount of construction that is taking place in the Indian Himalayan region. The author says that maybe the Supreme Court should now set clear guidelines. How many hydropower projects can this area sustain? How many people should come in? Because you would have seen in the last 1 or 2 years, a lot of videos of landslides in these Himalayan regions. Some of the landslides have even seen the rocks, huge boulders ending up on cars, on other vehicles, killing many people. This is a signal that the nature is giving to us every few months. And it is as foolish of us that we are not being able to interpret those signals, and we are still going ahead with rampant construction, which should stop. It's not that we have been doing the same with every project. The author gives an example of a certain project where proper safety protocol have been followed. For example, if you look at the construction of the Atal Tunnel in Kullu, Lahore and Spiti districts in Himachal Pradesh, the author says that in this construction project, the construction company was very, very well prepared. They conducted all the studies. They made sure that no worker is put in the way of harm. They made sure that any worker would enter the tunnel only when all the protocols were followed. They followed all the international protocols as well. But somehow, in this tunnel, NHAI has to take the blame. They have not been doing a good job in terms of safety protocol. The author says that we can learn from organizations such as BRO, the Border Road Organization, even the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. Even they have done a better job. They have a better safety record as compared to the safety record of National Highway Authority of India. So maybe this is something that they have to look into. Not just focus on the speed of construction, but also focus on the safety protocols being followed. The Indian Himalayan region, that is at the focus of this entire problem, consists of these areas. As you can see here, starting from Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, it goes to the northeast part of the country. Now, when you have such a large, such a long mountain range with different kind of areas, with different heights of the mountains, and also a lot of these sharing an international border with China, it becomes a very tricky situation for the government. Situation demands the government to protect our national interest, to protect our border areas, to ensure that there is proper connectivity till the border so that the movement of the troops and weapons and vehicles is practical and is possible. On the other hand, you also have to give the adequate respect that nature deserves. This is a problem that not just India, but nations around the world have been struggling with. The government of India has taken certain initiatives for the conservation of our Himalayan region. We have the Indian Himalayan Climate Adaptation Program, under which the government of India has been trying to get in touch with the vulnerable communities, strengthen their capabilities, ensuring that they are in a much better situation to tackle any disaster that they might see in this area. We also have something called the Secure Himalaya project that the government of India has taken up along with the Global Environment Facility. It promotes a sustainable practice in the alpine pastures and the forests in the high-range Himalayan mountains. Many of the articles that you read also go back to the Mishra Committee report of 1976. The Mishra Committee report in 1976 was the first such report that warned the government of the day that we should not take up heavy construction activities in the Indian Himalayan region. Any blasting, excavation of the road repair can have a disastrous impact on the area. But governments after governments have given more priority to our protection, our national interest, as compared to looking after the environment and sustaining along with the nature. This is the Char Dham project that the government has been working towards. If you have visited to these places, you would know that if you go by road mainly, Rishikesh is the last plain or non-mountainous areas. Usually people take a pit stop at Rishikesh. Some people who already start feeling ill, they stay at Rishikesh, and others basically climb up. And this is where you start the high altitude driving. There is Yamunotri, there is Gangotri, there is Badrinath, there is Joshimath, Rudraprayag. This is a very, very fragile region. The government of India has estimated the cost of this project to be about 12,000 crore rupees. The next article that we have here is from Bihar. The Bihar government, and this is not new by the way, the Bihar government for some time has been demanding a special category status to be given to them. Why are they demanding this? What is the logic behind this? Now, it's not difficult to make a guess. Why would any state demand a special category status? It's very similar to thinking of a question, why would a certain group of people demand reservation? Why do you think a certain community demands reservation? Because obviously they'll get some benefit out of it. Similarly, why do the states demand that we want a special category status? To get some benefits out of it. So what happens is there are certain states that have been recognized in the past as special category states or special category status. What happens is when the government implements a central sponsored scheme in those states, usually the expenditure is divided 60 and 40. So in usually circumstances, you will see if there's a central sponsored scheme implemented in a state, central government gives 60% of the expenditure, state government gives 40% of the expenditure. But when it comes to special category status states, there is a division of 90-10. 90% given by center, 10% given by the states. Not just this, when it comes to the recommendations given by the Finance Commission about how much money the center government should devolve to the states, even then the center gives more money usually to the special category status states. So these are some of the benefits that the state gets if it comes in the special category status. So Bihar obviously has been demanding this for a long time. On November 22, just a few days back, Bihar even passed a resolution saying that we should be granted this status. Now, as we have discussed earlier, a state assembly passing a resolution does not really mean anything. Doesn't mean anything means that it does not really have any impact. It cannot create a pressure. It doesn't have any law power. It is just a signal given to the central government that this is what we demand. The Bihar government has said that in the recent Bihar caste-based survey 2022, it has been proven that 1/3 of the Bihar population is living in poverty. So they are more than qualified to get this status. Now, if you look at what are the parameters taken into consideration to give this status to any state, you have to go back to 1969. 1969 was when this category was first introduced on the recommendation of the 5th Finance Commission. Now, they talked about certain factors under which these states can be categorized into special category status. If they are hilly or difficult terrain, that is usually the Himalayan states, the northeastern part of India, low population density or sizable share of tribal population, again, the northeast part of India qualifies under this. Strategic location along the international borders, economic infrastructural backwardness, and non-viable nature of state finances. Means the state government, for some reason, is just not able to earn enough money. These are the reasons that are taken into consideration to give this status to a state and call it a special category state. When the idea was first introduced, initially there were 3 states that were given this status: Jammu Kashmir, Assam and Nagaland in 1969. And then 8 more states were added to it: Arunachal, Manipur, Meghalaya, so on and so forth. Since then, multiple other states have been demanding the same. It's not just about Bihar. The benefits, as I discussed earlier, would be: 1, you would get more money from the central sponsored schemes you would get 90-10 ratio, 90% coming from the center government as compared to 60%. And you would also get some other concessions and more money from the recommendation of the Finance Commission. Now, please understand this. If you look at the past few finance commissions, they have not given any special preference to special category states. For example, if you look at the 14th and 15th Finance Commission, 14th and 15th Finance Commissions have, in their recommendations, have not given any special focus on special category states. They have said that overall, the center government should give more money to all the states. There is no specific criteria for special category states now. So special category state criteria is almost over now, because this Finance Commission, that is the N.K. Singh Commission, before that also we did not have any specific recommendation given to the special category states as such. It used to be done earlier. For example, there was a famous Gadgil-Mukherjee formula under which they had said that all the money that the center is giving to the states, 30% should be given to special category states alone. But again, this kind of recommendation has not been given in the last two finance commissions, because their argument is that the overall money being transferred from center to the state has increased considerably. From 32% it has increased to 41%. So there is no need to earmark more money specially to just the special category states. So now in the last two finance commissions, you don't have this argument. How does Bihar make its demand? On what basis? They have given multiple reasons. First, they say that there is lack of natural resources. Most of the mineral reserves that Bihar had have now been taken over by Jharkhand after the partition of the state. So when Jharkhand came into being in the year 2000, it became the mineral hub of India. So Bihar lacks any income from mineral resources, number one. Second, they say that we don't have continuous supply of water for irrigation. We have bad floods in the northern part of Bihar. We have droughts in the southern part of the state. All of that becomes a problem. And this is shown in the numbers as well. If you look at the state's per capita GDP, it's about 54,000 rupees, which is one of the poorest in the entire country. These are their reasons. Other states also have not remained behind, because if you are demanding something, why to stay behind? You can also demand the same. When Andhra Pradesh got bifurcated into Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, Andhra Pradesh said that most of our earning would go to Telangana now. So we also demand a special category status, and they have been demanding this since 2014. They say that we are vulnerable to natural calamities like cyclones, etc. Just like Odisha, Odisha also says, for example, their demand is based on the idea that they have a large tribal population. Andhra Pradesh's demand is on the idea that Hyderabad has been taken away from them, given to Telangana. But none of these demands has been accepted by the center. The center repeatedly says that now there is no particular definition of a special category status. It's gone now. The last two finance commissions have not yet mentioned it, but the states keep on demanding it. Why? Hoping that they will get some special economic package, and also the central sponsored scheme will get more money to the states from the central government. Now, the question is Bihar justified in making these demands? If you look at all the different criteria that were set up by the 5th Finance Commission, Bihar does not fulfill a lot of them. It does not have hilly terrain. It does not have any geographically difficult areas which are difficult to reach. In 2013, in fact, we had a committee under Raghuram Rajan that had said that Bihar should not be given a special category status. They should be given some other status. For example, he suggested that Bihar should be placed in a category of least developed states, under which there should be special development fund given to them. So let's not call Bihar a special category state, because they don't have the kind of difficulty that other states in the northeast or in the Himalayan region have. But we can call them a least developed category state and maybe give them some benefit out of that. That is what his argument was. As I said again, state governments have been demanding this. Center government has not shown any interest in taking forward this demand. The government from the center, usually they do announce certain special packages for states from time to time basis, especially when the elections are near. But you do not see the central government showing any inclination to accept the demand of categorizing a state into a special category state, because you accept a demand from one and you will see demands from all other parts as well. These were the articles from the mains examination point of view. Now let's see some of the articles in this Hindu newspaper from the prelims exam point of view. First one, the government of India has announced that Ayushman Bharat centers will now be called Ayushman Arogya Mandir. Now I'm sure all of you have heard of the Ayushman Bharat scheme, that is a central government scheme to provide health insurance to the people who can't afford it. But apart from the health insurance, the Ayushman Bharat scheme also has one more component, and that is the component under which health and wellness centers have been set up to give you primary health care. These were called the Ayushman Bharat or Health and Wellness Centers. They will now be renamed as Ayushman Arogya Mandir, and the tagline will be Arogyam Paramam Dhanam. This is what the government now has announced. The government has given a fund of 3,000 rupees per facility to get the new branding, get it painted so that everyone recognizes this. This is what the government's initiative is. Now, what do these centers do? India has over 1.6 lakh of these centers right now. They aim to provide primary health care, both maternal and child health services, and free essential drugs as well, along with the diagnostic services. The idea is to get healthcare to the people as close to their houses as possible. This Ayushman Bharat scheme, whose medical insurance part became more famous, the second component of the scheme, as I said, is about these health and wellness care centers. The scheme in itself provides a health insurance cover of rupees 5 lakh per year to over 10 crore poor and vulnerable families. Please remember, the insurance cover is 10 lakh for 10 crore families and not individuals. So if you assume one family having 5 members on an average, it would mean 50 crore people are covered. It talks about 10 crore families. These healthcare centers started in 2018 to give primary healthcare. Please remember this. Primary healthcare, not secondary, not tertiary, just primary healthcare. So mainly the OPD facilities that you can go. It's not a hospital where you can get admitted. It also talks about delivering comprehensive healthcare services, including communicable, non-communicable diseases, their treatment, elderly care, palliative care, etc. It also talks about diagnostic services and health promotion. Activities such as yoga and others are also taken up at these centers. These are some of the things that these health and wellness centers try to take up in all different parts of the country. Next article, the President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, made a speech yesterday on the occasion of the Constitution Day. The Chief Justice of India was also present. She proposed this idea, and not just proposed but supported this idea of All India Judicial Service. It's not a new idea. Let's first get that out of the picture. It's not a new idea. This has been something that we have been reading about, discussing, but it has not been implemented so far. What is this idea? Let's try and understand this. Right now, judges at the Supreme Court and High Court level are appointed by the President of India, for which we have a collegium system, and I'm sure all of you would have read about this. But what happens to judges below this? What about the district judges? And the judges that are subordinate to him, what about them? Now these judges, district judges and the judges below them, they are appointed by the governor of the respective state. So it is kind of a responsibility of the state government. For these judges, there are exams that are held. Many of you would have seen people preparing for the PCS judicial exam. Those are the exams that are held by the State Public Service Commission. So for example, if you are from Haryana, Assam, Punjab, Karnataka, West Bengal, your respective PCS, Public Service Commission, would have the exam conducted to join the judicial service. What is the problem with this? The problem is in a lot of these states, these exams are delayed. The marking pattern may be very different. For example, in Assam, it will have a different marking pattern. In, let's say, West Bengal, Gujarat, Rajasthan, it will have a very different marking pattern. The allegations of corruption Because of some states not being able to conduct the exam on time, there's a lot of vacancy as well. All of these mean that the level of judges in the lower judiciary is not up to the mark. So the idea that has been suggested for a long time is, why not have a kind of an exam that we have for UPSC Civil Services. One central body conducting the exam for, let's say, becoming a judge at the district level or at lower level. Those who pass the exam will be given different cadres, just like the IAS, IPS officers are given. So at an all India level, you have the recruitment, then send the judges to work in different states depending upon whatever their priority is. This is the idea of the Indian Judicial Service. As you know, a new All India service can be created by the Rajya Sabha. They have the power to initiate this. So as per the constitution, you can do this. But it has not been done so far. The President of India gave support that this is where India's judicial service is lacking, and we can have this idea implemented going forward. Now, this All India Judicial Service, as I said, it's not a new idea. In fact, it's a very, very old idea. It was first suggested by the Law Commission in 1958, so just 11 years after our independence. The idea came up again in 1978, again in the Law Commission report. Parliamentary Standing Committee in 2006 also suggested the same idea. So it has been repeated time and time and time again, but it has not been implemented. There are a lot of pros of this idea and there are a lot of cons as well. Pros, first, it's expected we will have a much more efficient judiciary. You can just compare the working of the UPSC and the state public service commissions. Most of the state public service commissions face a lot of issues and allegations of corruption, but you don't have these issues in the UPSC. The same kind of a structure and feature can be seen in All India Judicial Service. It will have a push, or it will give a positive push to the ease of doing business, and the problem of having much lesser judges than required can also be solved. If you look at 1987 Law Commission report of India, they suggested that India should have at least 50 judges per million, means per 10 lakh population. At that time, we had only 10.5 judges per million. If you actually see, the strength now has crossed about 20 judges in terms of the sanction strength. But again, sanction strength is not the real strength. Sanction strength, for example, means that in a court, in a high court, there can be 100 judges. But in reality, many seats are vacant. Usually, you will see 30-40% seats vacant. So against a sanction strength of 100, you might only have 60 judges. So sanction strength right now, if you count that, that is about 20 judges per million in India. Even then, we are far, far below the levels of, let's say, US that have 107 judges per million, UK that has 51 judges per million. Maybe this idea can solve this problem because the vacancy mostly lies at the lower court level and at the high court level as well. It will attract many more talented people to come and give this exam. Those who think that the state PCS is not fair to them, maybe they'll have much more confidence in giving such exams. Having said that, there are some problems with this system as well, because of which it has not been implemented. First big problem, the states don't support it. It is taking away the power of the state to appoint judges in the district court and lower. Because again, district judges lower than that are appointed by the governor. So it is within the rights of the state, and the states don't want encroachment of their power. There's also an issue of language. See, most of the cases in these courts are fought, they are argued in the local language. For example, in Gujarat, you will see the people arguing in these courts in Gujarati, in Punjab, in Punjabi, in Tamil Nadu, in the Tamil language, so on and so forth. If you now place a person from Gujarat as a judge in Karnataka, if you place a person from Kerala as a judge in, let's say, Rajasthan, it would create a big language barrier. So how would you solve that? It also goes against the idea of separation of powers. Why? Because you are giving the power to the executive to conduct this exam, based on which you will appoint judges. So again, this goes against the idea of separating judiciary from the executive. That also is a big challenge, because of which we have not seen Indian Judicial Service come into picture so far. The next article is the Government of India's attempt to reiterate the fact that whatever advice the ministers give to the president shall not be inquired into any court. As you know, the government of India has prepared the complete draft of the Bharatiya Sakshya Bill that will replace the Indian Evidence Act. It specifically says that any privileged communication between minister and the president cannot be inquired into, the court cannot ask any questions. Now the most interesting part is, this is not something new. It is already mentioned in Article 74 of the Indian Constitution. Article 74 anyway says that whatever advice a union government gives to president, it cannot be inquired into any court. The only difference is the government is repeating it in the law, and the government has not clearly defined what do you mean by privileged communication. It has been left over to the interpretation. It has not been defined properly what is privileged communication, what is non-privileged communication. But again, the current status is whatever advice the ministers give to the president, you cannot ask that in the court of law. It has already been mentioned in our constitution. As we have said earlier as well, these three new bills that are introduced by the government of India will go on the floor of the parliament in the upcoming winter session. However, these bills are extremely big, so every single day you will see some new fact coming into the paper. It's not that yesterday government made this change. Yesterday some journalist going through that bill may have seen, oh, this has also been done, so they published a news on this. But this is not something that the government has done now. When the draft bill would have been formed, it would have been a part of that draft itself. Thus, it's coming into the picture now. Some other changes have also been done to replace Indian Evidence Act. Words such as vakil, pleader, barrister have been replaced with the word advocate only. And section 166 about the power of jury to put forward question has been deleted, because we don't have jury system in India anyway. If you want to understand jury system, you might have watched a movie called Rustam. Jury system basically means when a case is going on and the judge does not decide if you're guilty or not. There are some random people, let's say 11, 13 people, who would hear the case sitting in the court, and they will decide whether you're guilty or not. This is what Article 74 looks like, which I'm sure all of you have read multiple times in Indian polity. First section of Article 74 says there shall be a Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister that will advise to the President of India, and whatever advice is given has to be binding. Second point is where it's a repeat of what is being said in the new law, because the second point in Article 74 is the whatever advice was tendered by the Minister or President shall not be inquired into any court. Next, we have the last news for the day from the field of science. The news says, when you cut a plant, even when you cut a grass, you will feel a certain bit of a smell. What smell is that? It's actually a reaction that the plant has, the reaction to the pain that the plant is suffering. And that pain is a kind of a signal to the other plants nearby to give them a signal that some danger is coming. This is what this article is about. How does this happen? This happens because of a compound called green leaf volatiles. The green leaf volatiles are released into the air whenever the plant is injured. This is the smell that you see. You might think that the smell is good, you might like the smell, but for plant it is actually a sign of danger, and it's a danger sign that they are spreading to the other plants in the area that the danger is coming. Now, you might argue, what will the other plants do now? Even if the other plant knows that, okay, danger is coming, I may get attacked, I may also be cut down, what will they do? They can't do anything. But they can actually make certain changes. For example, it has also been proven that when there's an insect attack on a plant, similar kind of chemical compounds are given out to give a signal to the other plants in the nearby area. So what happens in that case? The other plants in the nearby area, what they do is they can actually change their formation to make themselves much lesser edible so that the insect does not attack them. They can make certain changes so that they become difficult to consume. This is in their hands. They can't run away, but yes, they can make themselves non-appetizing, as you say. Now, what are the scientists interested in? The scientists are interested in this kind of a behavior of the plant because they think maybe we can now use this behavior to reduce the use of pesticides. For example, if there is an insect that attacks the plant, it can give a signal to the other plant that I am being attacked so that they can prepare their own defense mechanism. That is why maybe the farmers would not need to spread the pesticides, and the agricultural pest would not be able to attack the plants if they start their own defense mechanism. That's the study that is going on. The problem is right now scientists are not sure how the defense mechanism of the plants is kicked in, how they would be able to repel all these insects. But if it is possible, if we are able to understand how these plants are able to fight against the insects, it can cut down on the use of these pesticides as well. How does this signal work? There is a molecular cascade that is mediated by calcium. This calcium is the one that actually sends signal to the other parts of the plant, and that is how they try to make some chemical changes within their body so that they become non-appetizing to anyone that is attacking them in the long run. Again, this is done through the idea of green leaf volatiles. Do remember that part. The GLF, so whenever they are attacked, they give this signal to the other plants nearby. What do the other plants do? They can't run away, but they try to make sure that they change their composition such a way that the other insects don't find them attractive, they are not appetizing enough. This can save the plants against abiotic stress, against herbivores, against the other pathogens, etc. that are in the nearby area. This brings us to the end of today's discussion. There are a couple of practice questions as always which you can try and write answers to. You can submit these answers to the student answer writing portal where you can watch each other's answers, give each other feedback. The link is given in the description of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the next session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.